Well, good morning and welcome back to the second hour of Lovebabz Lovetalk. I'm delighted I get to talk to Courtney Bryan. She is the composer, the new composer of residence for the New Haven Symphony Orchestra for the 2025-2026 season.
That's right. Yeah, and the next 2 seasons.
Oh, the next two. Oh, you could be a good while, girl. Welcome.
Thank you. Wonderful to see you again.
It is lovely to see you again. What you been up to?
Yeah, a lot of things. I'm here in New Orleans. I've been working on different projects, writing and doing a little bit of traveling earlier this year, but now I'm just kind of mostly here in New Orleans, just working on a new project. It's an opera.
So now, when you come to do artist in residence, do you move here?
So I'm not actually moving to New Haven, but I'll be there throughout the year at different points. So we're now scheduling when that'll be. So I'll be there for a number of different reasons. I'm going to work with the Young Composers program that the Symphony has. So I'm going to meet a number of times throughout the year, or throughout the 2 years, with the Young Composers. And then I'll be there I have 2 concerts that I'm part of this year. So one is in November, and I have to look up the dates, but one is in November and then one is in March. So I'll have pieces of mine perform with the symphony, and then I'm sure other things will come up, and I'll be around for other events.
I mean, it's nice to see you again. So, what is it about the New Haven Symphony that you dig? Because you're no stranger to us.
Yeah, I mean, it was wonderful coming there last fall, and I really enjoyed working with Perry So, and we all just had a great time, like talking afterwards. I learned more about the symphony, and I mean, particularly learn more about their composer in residence program that they've been doing over the years. And, it's just great to learn about that. I was really excited when Katie reached out to me about being a composer in residence. So that's it's definitely an honor. And getting to learn about New Haven will be a new experience for me. So I really love that. Like when I've done a few other residencies where I haven't lived in the city before. Like I did one with Jacksonville Symphony in Florida, and I hadn't lived there, but while I was working there, I got to know different parts of the community and learn about a city, and then write. It always inspires the music that I write.
Okay, but New Orleans is home.
New Orleans is home, yeah.
The Big Easy, the Big Easy. Yeah. What's the weather like these days? I know it's hot, girl. I know it's hot.
It's hot. I mean, it has been raining every day, and so that kind of helps it not be unbearable, but then it's also wet all the time. But yeah, it's nice and hot. But I grew up here, so I'm used to that.
You're used to it. Girl, I only like New Orleans in November. That's about all I can do.
Yeah, that's a good
time.
I
like it in the fall. Love it in the fall. So, all right. So what are you working on, Courtney? Like what's the latest music that you're working on, and can you talk a little bit about it?
Sure. Yeah. At the moment, what I'm really deep in at the moment is the opera that I'm working on. That's an opera that's sponsored by Fisher Center at Bard, and we're setting Tennessee Williams' play Suddenly last summer into a one-act opera. It's like a chamber-sized opera. So I've been working on that. The librettists are Gideon Lester and Daniel Fish, and Daniel Fish is the director. And they worked together on many projects in the past. One of the projects they worked on was the Oklahoma Revival. So they did Revival of Oklahoma. It started at Bard and went to Off-Broadway and eventually was on Broadway and won a Tony and everything. And I remember I saw that production of Oklahoma when I was visiting New York, and I was really excited about just like seeing how Daniel Fish's vision works and everything. And then this project came later. So yeah, so we've been working on that, and that's really nice. A different kind of project for me as far as theme, to do a Tennessee Williams project, but the part that I'm connected with is that it takes place in New Orleans. And so a lot of it's familiar to me, but it's like a different side of New Orleans than I feel like I grew up in, with this rich family in the Garden District of New Orleans. But I feel like very fascinated by thinking about New Orleans in different ways while working on this project.
Oh, I love that. So when you come to New Haven, do you have a sense of what you want to do with the new artists and resident the new artist folks, or do you sort of start thinking about it and you'll know once you get there or hear them, or like what's that process like?
Yeah, so I'm at the moment just partnering, like learning how the program's been done in the past and how we want to do it this year. There's a lot that's already structured, so that's really nice. Like the amount of times that we meet per year, and then the idea at the end of the year, there's some sort of performance of the works. The students get to hear their works performed by professional musicians of the symphony. So I know that much, and so like what we'll focus on in detail is something that we're gonna shape together. And so I'm excited about that. And then I feel like I'm just kind of approaching New Haven with an open mind. There's a few connections I have there. Like my cousin Dr. Alden Young, he recently moved to New Haven to teach at Yale. And so I've gone to visit him since just like in the past few years. Like when I was there in the fall, I think he just recently moved there. So like I have family there, like who was newly moved there. So we'll be learning New Haven together. And then I have other people I know both at Yale University and Wesleyan University. But I feel like besides that, I'll be like kind of coming with like a fresh slate, and like just want to learn more about the New Haven community in general. Like I know there's so much to New Haven, the city and the history there. So I'm really looking forward to learning.
But you know what? You have to get my number so when you come back, we can get you in front of the peoples. Get
Yeah.
you get you in the spaces where the peoples are, and you can come hang out on the porch a little bit,
Oh, yeah, that'd
and
be
get a
great.
vibe. Now we used to have a couple of New Orleans restaurants, and they have since closed.
Oh,
So I can't promise you any New Orleans food, Creole, Cajun. I can't promise that. But I can get you close.
great. And I always hear about the New Haven pizza, so I need
Oh,
to.
the pizza wars are real.
Okay. Yeah, so I look forward to doing that research. Learn
Oh
about
yeah,
the
you cannot be a New Havener, Courtney, and not have some pizza, you
pizza.
know, and from like a bunch of places, because there's the big three or the big four, and then
Okay.
there's some really other ones that are really kind of cool. So you're in New Orleans, all that good music in New Orleans. I know you just don't listen to opera. I know you probably listen to a whole bunch of different kinds of music. What's
Mhm.
it? What's on the playlist these days?
Hmm. Well, sometimes I'm checking out new things, and other times, what I've recently done is I was excited because I'm glad that CDs are back in now. So I have this whole like collection of CDs from over the years, like ever since like some of them go back to like high school. So I have this whole collection that I always move around with, and I was looking around because I bought a new record player when I recently moved, and so then I also saw they were selling CD players. So I've been going through old CDs, and I've been really obsessed this week with a particular Carmen McRae album. It's called
Ooh.
Dream of Life. I'm like looking at it right now. It's called Dream of Life. And so I've been kind of going through like CDs that I used to listen to at different parts of my life.
Hmm.
I always listen, there's certain people I listen to a lot, like um, Pharoah Sanders and Alice Coltrane and Billie Holiday. So I'm definitely a big jazz fan. Even though technically people say she's retired from music, like as far as popular music, one of my favorite people to listen to is Rihanna. So I still listen to a lot of her
Is
hits.
is
Like
she retired from music?
not official. I know people always say that because they're waiting for her next album. But I guess meantime she took over the fashion industry and the beauty industry. So
And having babies.
that's right. She got her family. Yeah, she's got plenty going on. So she's not retired from anything. But yeah, like her music, she's one of my. I love her music. They remind me of different parts of my life. So yeah. But I look forward to checking out some newer, like seeing what new has come out. I listen to all types of music. I was excited last time I was in New York and New Jersey. I got to see Beyonce live for the first time.
I was gonna ask you, are you a Beyonce? Did you go see her? Were you interested in seeing her?
I did. I was amazed. That actually came about while we were doing our workshop for the opera. Gideon gifted a few of us with tickets. I was like, oh wow, what a gift to get. So like yeah, I actually got to go to one. I've missed all of the tours. I've grown up listening to her music, but I was actually able to see the concert that was in New Jersey. And
Hmm.
yeah, just having that experience was amazing because I love seeing different kind of shows, like what go into it. I often am thinking about the music part itself, but I whenever I see a show like that size or any kind of show that has production, it's nice to see all that goes into it and all the, what it means to put on like an experience.
And do you hear it? Like, do you hear the music? Like when you see a big, because that is massive. This Beyonce like it's got a lot of moving parts and bells and whistles and the music. Do you listen to the? Can you hear the work and the effort in the music that she's put in?
I do, yeah, and I think about that. I mean, I think when I was there live, I was really caught with everything. It was like the sensory overload and stuff. So I was thinking about the whole thing together, like the dance and the music and the stage set and just the experience and people singing along, like watching the audience and so. But yeah, with Beyonce, I mean, I always liked listening. I always like listening to her voice itself because a lot of times her projects usually inspire a lot of think pieces and they'll talk about the words and they'll talk about the meaning. I'm like, also, but like I always like listening to her voice and what's going on in the music and the production team she works with. And I mean, she's one example, but in general, like whenever I listen to projects, I like thinking about all of the different parts that go into making something like an experience.
Hmm. Not unlike an opera, I would say, Courtney, right?
Mhm.
Because an opera
Yeah.
has a lot of sensory parts to it. Like you got to see
Yeah.
it and experience it, and all the choreography, right? It's kind of the same vibe.
It's true. Actually, it was nice timing to see it because I was thinking about that because it's like there's the music and that's the part I'm doing and thinking about the words and how to set it to music, but a big part of it will be like how it's staged, who's cast in the different roles, and yeah, this whole thing of like someone coming for an experience, and it'll be very different than a large scale production like that because we're doing something that's going going more in like a minimal sort of aesthetic with things. There's like a chamber size, and the subject matter is very like Tennessee Williams can be very, I guess, I don't know why the word raw, like the emotions, raw emotion.
Yeah. Oh
So
no, that's a good word.
yeah, it's like very intense, and I think the intensity sometimes what brings out the intensity is to like pull back and have things very minimal, and so that's kind of what in some ways I'm going for, like thinking about the music and this particular project. But at the same time, I like to see productions of different sizes, and like when I see something on Broadway or something, like to see something like did I see Cats? Well, I saw The Lion King on
Okay.
Broadway.
Oh, but that's another big
That's
kind
a
of,
large one.
yeah, a
Yeah,
lot
so
of moving parts.
I'll see something like The Lion King and understand what it's like to be fully immersed and it's like your senses are overloaded. But then I also like going to a concert. I helped curate a concert with the San Francisco Symphony this past season, and it was something where I worked with a team, so they always it was their series, the Soundbox series. So what they do is they have a black box sort of situation and they turn it into an experience. So they have the whole team that's doing the lighting and the different stages, and it's minimal because you don't have the bells and whistles of like a large, like the other ones I mentioned, but it's like minimal is really geared towards like chamber music, but they still add all these other elements so it doesn't just feel like okay, there's a stage and there's an audience. Like you feel like there's three different stages, and then the audience would come. And so this is their concept, not mine. How they put it together. They have it where the audience basically buys into the experience. They know who the curator is, but they don't know what they're coming to hear. So they just show,
Oh,
and then there's a whole, and you don't have like a program to look at. So what I did was I curated a concert of contemporary Afro diasporic composers, and that's something that's
wow.
inspired by a mentor of mine, my advisor from grad school, George Lewis. Um, has been doing a lot of concerts and programs based around a book he's done on contemporary Afro diasporic composers. And so I was inspired. I mean, I've always been inspired of learning the history of Black composers that are doing like symphonic and choral music and that tradition, so-called classical music. And so, yeah, it was really great experience to like, I did the music curation, but then a lot of it was like all these different elements. So I was like, that was a nice way of being part of like a production while it being like a classical music concert. And the production really fit the type of music that we were doing.
Mm. And so the fact that you got to choose the African diasporic music, like, do
Mhm.
you often get a chance to insert that kind, those kinds of composers into your into things that you're doing? Because I don't know if people know readily
Mhm.
who African and diasporic composers are.
Yeah, I mean, I hope to do more of it. So, like, whenever I get a chance to curate, I mean, that's something I've kind of always done it in a way. Like, whenever I have a platform, sometimes it's through teaching. So, like, when I teach at Tulane University, in my classes, I feel like that's a chance where I get to like bring different voices in. Like, if I'm teaching a subject, I'm always thinking about who are a lot of times the people that we don't hear about. And so I have a way of including that. And then whenever I curated some concerts when I did a composer in residency with the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra right at home. And one of the things that I proposed doing my last year was a chance to curate a series of concerts that featured contemporary Louisiana composers. And so it's just like a different theme, but the same idea, just like contemporary, like living composers and getting to work with the orchestra and just hearing like the range of styles. Like there is no one sound of a Louisiana composer, just like there's no one sound of black composers or a style that you could say like, oh, here you could say here are genres that have been created by black people, but also you can say here's a black person who's composed and how are you going to define that style? It doesn't always go with what people would expect,
Hmm.
but they have defined what black music is or isn't. So I like the idea of hearing like different sounds and different perspectives from black composers all together. It just has a nice and then plus there are composers that I just really like their music. So it was just a fun project for me to think like, oh, here's people that almost everybody I program are people I know personally, and it was just people whose music I love, and it was nice to like get to think of hearing it all in one concert. And that's one thing that we'll be doing together. Like this season was mostly formed and we're including my music, but thinking about the second season with New Haven, I know that we're talking about like getting a chance to kind of do more curation and think about like recommending music, and so I really look forward to that part of things.
I think that's good because our symphony has been over the last, I don't know, the last maybe 6, 7 years. They've really um, embraced the diversity of composers and music and bringing that to the city in a way that has never been done before. So
Okay.
it's really been a nice learning experience we learned about all the women, the black women composers who we didn't know existed, and somehow or other there's a resurgence around that, marrying spoken word and the symphony to get, like, we've been seeing a lot of creative interesting things, which I think for me, Courtney, broadens the audience for symphony.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah, I'm excited to see that. Like when I saw the programming that New Haven Symphony has been doing, like that was inspiring for me. And it's nice to know it's recent. I mean, so you've seen over how the symphony has approached things over different years.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. So
that's
what's your life like teaching at, you said, at Tulane?
oh yeah, I teach at Tulane University. So yes, it's nice. I'm on leave this year, which makes my will make my traveling easier because I'll be between between my work in New Haven and then the opera and then other projects I'm doing in New York. I'll be in New York and New Haven quite often, and then I'll be here, of course, at home. Um, but yeah, most of the time during the year, I mean, I teach in a music department. I'm also affiliated with Africana Studies, so I'm going to be when I return, I'll be doing more. I'll be both in music and Africana Studies. And in the music department, I was hired in the jazz studies area, and one of the things that we've done since I've been there is um, we've made it into Black American music. And so that's a very recent development. So we're still like defining what that means as far as classes that we offer and who we have teaching. But it is really exciting opportunity to really think about like different genres of music, but also kind of just opening up the umbrella. It's still coming out of we're still like centering the history of like Louis Armstrong and Billie Holiday and Duke Ellington, but also kind of expanding from there about like this idea of Black American music. So yeah, so that's been like one of the institutional things I've been involved with. But in general, I just enjoy working with the students. Like we have students come from everywhere at Tulane, so most come from around the country, and some come from Louisiana as well. But I've just met so many interesting students that, especially like the undergrad and the graduate students. I've met a lot of students that I don't know. Teaching, I feel like it's very grounding. So like the performances are very exciting. Like you have this big like this rush every time. Like I feel a rush every time I get to hear my piece performed or like I'm on stage and you get to do that. And then I come back and then I teach my classes and it just feels like it's a very grounding experience. And it also has me think a lot about like when I say I teach a class and I decide who we're including or what we're talking about, it's a lot of like thinking about what matters and then learning from your students all the time. Like students come in and they have all these different perspectives. So yeah, so I feel like teaching really is a big part of my life and helps me with my music, and my music helps me with the teaching.
And I mean, and to do it in Louisiana, seriously, I mean, there's so much rich music in New Orleans, but
Hmm.
not just New Orleans, but surround. I mean, just all through Louisiana. It's just all kinds of music that you can learn from and draw from, and a lot of the music that we think of, like a Scotch Joplin kind of music. Like that
Hmm.
music was like born there, right?
Yeah, yeah, there's such a rich history. You're right. Like it's and there's no shortage of it. There's such a history, and just even think about growing up in New Orleans itself, like the music that's here, and like you say, like the area. I mean, we have the Zydeco, and we have,
Yes,
um,
I love Zydeco. Whoa, oh
yeah.
Shay, I love Zydeco.
And that's the type of music I've never actually played. So now I'm like, that's on my list. Like, oh, if I could have like experience. But yeah, like I love, yeah, like all the music that's from the area, and then like New Orleans itself, like just the roots of the music, and we have such a rich tradition. And what I love moving back home, because I lived in New York for a while. When I moved back home to New Orleans, just seeing like it's just such a lively music scene. So like the musicians that are here, the ones that come from here and all the ones that are drawn to New Orleans to play music, it's just a very vibrant music scene, and that goes across the arts in New Orleans too. So it's really a lot going on, and it's a manageable size city. So so
Yeah,
I love the larger cities too, but I like that New Orleans is very cosmopolitan, but also small, and we move at a different pace, so it's kind of more laid
yes,
back pace. So that's kind of nice.
yes, yes. Now, Courtney, did you always know you music was going to be your career? Like, did you know from a very young age? And what was the first thing you learned to play?
Yeah, so I knew pretty early. First of all, I knew I loved music. I loved the piano, so we had a piano in the house, and both of my sisters, Amy and Alma, play piano. They're both visual artists now. And they did that then too. But they started with piano, so I would just do whatever they did. So I fell in love with it. And I was like the little sister. I fell in love with it since I was like 4 or so, and that was just like the first thing
Wow.
I did was like get on the piano. So I've just always loved that. And then I learned more that it could be a career when people started paying me to do it. Like I didn't know it was something that, it's something I love to do. And my first experience with like being paid to do music had to do with my church. So I always played at my church, and they often at St. Luke's Episcopal in New Orleans. I'm part of that church now again. Um, they always made space for me to like play things that I wrote because I taught myself how to write music early. I studied piano with a teacher, but as far as writing music, I just kind of like taught myself how to do that. So I would like they'd always leave space where I could like play a piece on the program. But then when I got to junior high, then I started subbing for the organist, and then they started paying me to play it. I didn't know that there was a connection. So I learned that you could like have a job in something that you love at an early age, which was nice to
That's
learn.
a good story. I
Yeah,
love that they made space on the program for you to play
mhm.
your original pieces. Like
Yeah,
that's a loving church right there.
it is a loving church. Yeah, and we like to take the music very seriously, and so it's true. It's important because I see that with younger. Because we have this really talented dancer who's in high school, Brooklyn, London, and she performed for. I helped curate this concert at my church with South African freedom music, and she was dancing. And it was just like you see, it's great to have those opportunities it's great to share that in a church because it's like, or in a supportive place, because it's like you have those experiences, and then when you're out in the professional world, you always have that grounding of like doing
Yeah,
things, in those settings. So yeah, there's anyway, I love that idea, and I think for especially like in the black community, we always hear about the black church. Like there was always a place where people could go to share things, like to have meetings about things, to express, to have like concerts and have our own like communities. And it's interesting how even over time that role, yeah, it's important to have places where you can kind of be safe to like express yourself and people, support you.
and so what's were your parents musicians too? Were they music people?
They both of my parents were interested in theater when they were younger, and they went into my mother is a retired English professor. She taught at Xavier University for many years, and my father is a retired lawyer. So they chose those career paths, which I think with the English, I know it's still more connected with the arts, but they have these career paths, but they always were into the arts and remain that way. So I think with me and my sisters, we were drawn into it because we were exposed to a lot. Like we would go when my mama taught at Dillard University. I remember going to like the plays. There were always different plays we were going to, or like there were concerts in the city. I remember my parents taking me to see the orchestra and to see the opera at different points, and those experiences. So they were always into the arts and exposed us to it.
That's it. But see, that's how most people, a lot of people, get their introduction, right? And that's important for our community because sometimes we people will say, "Well, that sounds white," or "That's a white kind of thing." But I like you. My mother didn't take us to stuff; she sent us to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I always was at Yale Rep, or I was always at, somewhere listening to things that were just outside of my community,
Hmm.
in a way to sort of get a real sense of the world. So I think that's a wonderful. So you graduate from high school, you go off to college, and that's when you say, "This is music is my thing." Like
Yeah, at some point,
that
I
is.
think I kind of knew it early. I went to an arts high school in New Orleans, New Orleans Center for the Creative Arts, and everybody there was very like career focused. So I think it was actually in high school. It was kind of like a lot of us have decided at that point, like this is what I'm doing for my life. So I think it's an unusual situation to have that, like when you have those arts high schools and everybody's kind of like, um, decided that path already, and it's just a matter of like where you go. Like a lot of us went to conservatories and kind of focused on that. So I went to Oberlin Conservatory, and a lot of the same thing when I got to Oberlin Conservatory. Like by then, people had already decided like this is what my career is, and we were all like, like single focus on that. But yeah, so it was pretty early on. But I would say that the way my path has gone was different than I imagined when I was younger because I hadn't seen all the paths that were possible in music.
Hmm.
So I knew about a lot of different performers. I knew one way of being successful was to be on tour regularly as a performer. And um, I saw a number of different options, but I didn't know that I would be drawn to be in academia, for example. Though I was around, I mean, a lot of my family is in academia, and I was exposed to that from a lot of different perspectives. But I didn't necessarily know that that was my path till later. But there were certain like pivotal moments. I always tell people about the pivotal moment I had when I graduated from, I got a master's at Rutgers University. And at that point, I was trying to figure out what is this career path because like I got my master's, I was thinking like I still had that image of like success means that I'm playing in someone's band and I'm touring the world. And I was thinking of how to go about that. At the same time, so back to Beyonce, a friend of mine told me that there were auditions for Beyonce's band. So this is back when she was forming her all girl band. And she was early in her solo career. So I remember hearing about that, and I just kind of spontaneously said, "Okay, I found out what I needed to do that." So I did the audition, and then I made it to the finalists, and then I had like a serious like oh, this could be a path. So I was a finalist, and while I didn't make it into the band, I met a lot of really interesting women that had played in so many bands. Like some had played with Prince. Like it was just things that were outside of my classical and jazz bubbles. And so I just met all these different amazing women that ended up, many of them ended up in her band like for many years and still. And then at the same time, I was applying for grad school. So I applied for composition programs. And one of the places I really was interested was Columbia University because I heard that George Lewis was there, and that was a composer that I was interested in getting to study with. And so the same around the same time Beyonce's band didn't work out, Columbia did work out, and that like it just charted a whole different path for me. Like that Columbia experience changed my life. Like being in that music program, but also being part of the other parts of the university. Like there's the Columbia Center for Jazz Studies, who I've been remained involved with all these years, which started out of the English department, but it's also its own center. There was the African American Studies area. There was like different centers that deal with like religion and public life. So it was interesting. Like I just had one of those moments where I was wide open to whichever path would happen. And the path that worked out for me seemed to be the one that really was like the right fit for me. So I try to take that approach. Like sometimes it's good to make choices. Like I choose this, but other times it's good to just be like, I'm open and I'm, like I can use my training in a lot of different ways and then see which ways, you're led to or which ways kind of draw you in.
Courtney, that's a damn good story about auditioning for the Beyonce band and then the Columbia. Like that is such a fork in the road kind of moment, right? Like now, because if you would have gotten into Beyonce's band, your life would have went in a whole different direction.
It would have, yeah. And I'm sure like any direction could work, but it's like, but I'm really happy about the direction I'm going in. So it's like interesting to think that being open, but then like feeling like things worked out the way they should.
I think they did. Well, I am delighted that you are going to be the composer in residence coming to New Haven for the next several seasons. I hope that you get a chance to spend some real time in New Haven. I'll make sure you get pizza, and hopefully I'll tell Katie to give you my phone number so you can touch base. I know you got your cousin here, but you're gonna need to know some other folks here so that you can really get a sense of what New Haven has to offer. And I don't want you to leave this city not knowing a lot. So
I appreciate it.
I am extending Southern hospitality to you, girl, because my roots are Southern, my people are Southern, and so I want you to be welcomed here.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that so much. It was wonderful talking with you.
It was so good talking to you, Courtney. I've learned so much more. I can't wait to see what you do for these next couple of years. Oh, yeah. And working with Perry So has got to be good because he's probably one of the coolest maestros out there, and has a really good sense of community building and community partnership. So this is going to be a real treat for New Haven.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm really looking forward. Yeah, it's going to be a nice journey.
All right. Well, enjoy your New Orleans time. Stay out the heat, girl, and call the sister when you get into town.
Okay, sounds great.
All right. Thank you, Courtney.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Harry. All right, I'll be back tomorrow, y'all. Y'all have a good day, and don't hurt nobody. I'm not an attorney yet. You can't call me, so. We'll keep